There is a man I want you to picture. He walks into a room, not loudly, not with fanfare, but something shifts when he enters. Conversations don't stop, but they slow down. Women who were mid-sentence find their eyes drifting, just for a moment, in his direction. He's not the tallest man in the room. He's not wearing the most expensive suit. He's 58 years old. His hair is silver at the temples, and there are lines around his eyes that only decades of living can carve. Thoughtful. And yet, there is something about him that younger men in that room simply cannot manufacture. Something they haven't earned yet. Something that doesn't come from a gym or a haircut or a carefully crafted dating profile. It comes from within, and it is, in the most literal sense of the word, biological. If you are a man over 40, maybe 50, maybe 60, and somewhere in the back of your mind you've started to believe that age is working against you in the arena of attraction, I need you to stop, right now, because what you're about to hear in the next 10 minutes is going to fundamentally restructure the way you understand your own power. You are not becoming invisible. You are becoming something far more rare. And today we are going to talk about 7 subconscious triggers, not pickup techniques, not manipulative tactics, but deep, primal, evolutionary signals that cause a woman's psychology to open up to trust, to feel something she may not even be able to explain to her closest friend. We are going to go inside the female mind, and we are going to understand what she is actually calculating, often without even knowing it, when she is in the presence of a mature man who knows himself. Now, I want to name something important before we begin. Researcher and psychotherapist Esther Perel, one of the most respected voices on human desire in the world today, has spent decades studying what sustains erotic tension and emotional bonding between partners. Her core insight, the one that cuts through all the noise, is this: desire requires mystery, and mystery requires a person who is complete on their own, a person with depth, with history, with a sense of self that doesn't collapse in the presence of another. That is not a young man's currency. That is yours. So let's go through these 7 triggers. And I'll tell you right now, number 4 is the one that generates the most discussion, the most controversy, and frankly the most discomfort, because it requires you to look at something most men spend their whole lives avoiding. Stay with me until we get there. Trigger number 1. Stillness as dominance. Here is the mistake most men make, regardless of age. They feel nervous energy in the presence of a woman they're attracted to, and they fill that space. They talk more. They move more. They lean in. They gesture. They perform. And what they don't realize is that every single one of those micro-behaviors is broadcasting one thing to her subconscious: anxiety. And anxiety, in the language of primal biology, is a red flag. What her subconscious is actually reading is not the words you're saying. It's the nervous system underneath the words. She is running a continuous, invisible subconscious calculation, asking herself one fundamental question: is this man regulated? Is this man at peace with himself? Because if he isn't at peace with himself, he will come to me for that peace. And that is a weight I don't want to carry. Joe Navarro, the former FBI behavioral analyst and author of What Everybody Is Saying, has documented extensively how stillness, genuine, unhurried stillness, is one of the most powerful nonverbal signals of confidence and psychological safety that a human being can broadcast. Not stiffness, not coldness, stillness. The kind that says, I am not threatened by silence. I am not in a hurry to prove myself to you. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Before you speak, before you respond to something she says, pause, one breath, a slow exhale through the nose. Let the silence exist for just a moment longer than feels comfortable. You will feel the impulse to fill it. Don't. That pause is not awkward. To her nervous system, that pause feels like ground, like something solid she can stand on. That is your first trigger. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is power. Trigger number 2. The art of genuine attention. The mistake here is subtle but devastating. Most men listen to respond. They are already forming their next sentence, their next story, their next demonstration of relevance, while she is still speaking. And women who are by evolutionary design extraordinarily attuned to social signals feel this. They feel the moment your attention shifts inward, And when that happens, something inside her quietly closes. What her subconscious is translating is this: he is not here for me. He is here for the version of me that serves him. Dr. John Gottman, whose decades of research at the University of Washington essentially created the modern science of relationship stability, identified what he called bids for connection, small emotional moments where one partner reaches toward the other. His research showed that couples who thrive are not the ones who never fight. They're the ones who turn toward each other's bids, who noticed, who is present, genuine attention, the kind where you are actually fully absorbing what she is saying, where your questions come from real curiosity rather than conversational strategy, creates something in a woman that is extraordinarily rare in her experience with men. It makes her feel seen, not admired, not desired, seen. And feeling truly seen is one of the deepest human needs that most people go their entire lives without fully experiencing. The fix: the next time she is speaking, your only job is to understand her, not to agree, not to solve, not to relate, to understand. Ask one follow-up question that shows you are actually listening. Not "that's interesting, you know I once," but when you say that, what did it feel like in that moment? The difference between those two responses is the difference between a man she forgets and a man she cannot stop thinking about. Trigger number 3. Emotional grounding. Being her anchor, not her mirror. The mistake: when she is emotionally activated, anxious, upset, overwhelmed, many men either match her energy, which escalates the situation, or they shut down entirely, which makes her feel abandoned. Neither of these is what she needs. Neither of these is what her biology is asking for. What she is actually reading in those moments is not your words. She is reading your nervous system. She is asking, can this man hold me when I am falling apart without falling apart himself? This is the subconscious calculation that separates a man she finds comfortable from a man she finds magnetic. The biological symphony of a woman's stress response is designed, in part, to seek regulation from outside herself, particularly from a partner whose calm nervous system can communicate safety to hers. This is not a weakness. This is biology. And it is a role that younger men who are still working through their own regulation simply cannot fill with the same depth and steadiness. The fix is this: when the emotional temperature rises, your job is not to fix it and not to flee from it. Your job is to lower your own voice by half a register, slow your breathing, and say 5 words: I'm right here. Tell me. That's it. You are not solving the problem. You are becoming the ground. And a woman who finds a man who can be her ground, especially after years of carrying everything alone, will not forget that feeling. Ever. Trigger number 4. Psychological exposure. The trigger most men fear. And here we are. This is the one. This is the trigger that makes men uncomfortable, that generates the most pushback, and that is, without question, the most powerful force in creating deep emotional attraction in a mature woman. Psychological exposure. Let me tell you what it is not. It is not oversharing. It is not therapy speak. It is not leading with your wounds as a way to generate sympathy. That is not vulnerability. That is performance. Real psychological exposure is this: the willingness to name your inner experience in real time, without apology and without armor. That conversation meant something to me. I find myself thinking about what you said. There's something about being around you that makes me want to be more honest than I usually am. These are not weak statements. They are in fact among the most powerful things a man can say, because they require courage. And a woman's nervous system knows the difference between a man who is performing openness and a man who is actually open. The mistake most men make, especially men of a certain generation, who were taught that emotional restraint was strength, is that they protect themselves so thoroughly that nothing real ever gets through. And a woman standing in front of a wall, no matter how impressive the wall is, will eventually stop knocking. What her subconscious is reading when you let something real through, when you allow a moment of genuine psychological exposure, is this: this man trusts me. And when someone trusts us with something real, our nervous system responds with trust in return. This is not romance. This is neuroscience. The fix is not a technique. It is a practice. Begin to notice in the quiet moments, in conversations, in the spaces between words, what is actually true for you, and then occasionally say it out loud. Not everything, not always, but enough. Enough for her to know that there is a man behind the composure. That is what she is waiting for. That is what makes her feel safe, seen, and cherished. Trigger number 5. Sexual polarity, the masculine force that takes initiative. This is where we need to talk about something that the modern world has confused and complicated almost beyond recognition: the dynamic tension between masculine and feminine energy. Here is what I want you to understand. A woman does not want a man who is passive in his desire. She does not want a man who is tentative, who asks for permission at every turn, who has so thoroughly suppressed his masculine directness out of fear of getting it wrong that she can no longer feel him in the room. She wants a man who moves with intention, who makes decisions, who creates an environment in which she can relax into her own nature, because he is fully occupying his. Now, and this is critical, this has nothing to do with aggression, nothing to do with pressure, nothing to do with ignoring her signals. In fact, the man with true masculine polarity is the most attuned man in the room, because he is reading her responses continuously, and he is calibrating his approach with both confidence and sensitivity. Women are emotional lie detectors. I want you to sit with that phrase. They have spent their entire lives from girlhood reading micro-expressions, detecting incongruence between words and energy, sensing the difference between a man who is performing with confidence and a man who actually inhabits it. You cannot fake polarity. You cannot intellectually construct it. It has to live in your body. The congruence between what you say and how you carry yourself, the alignment between your words and your presence, is the foundation of sexual polarity. When those two things are in sync, she doesn't have to think about whether she trusts you. She just does. And that trust is the doorway to everything else. The fix: stop asking for permission to be present. Start showing up, fully, with intention and awareness. Lead the conversation. Suggest the restaurant. Open the door. Not because she can't, but because your willingness to take initiative is a biological signal that you are a man who moves through the world with direction. And direction, to the female nervous system, is safety. Trigger number 6. The language of specificity. The mistake is generic compliments. You look beautiful. You're so smart. She has heard these words. She has heard them from men who meant them and men who didn't. After enough repetitions, they become noise. What her subconscious is calculating when she receives a generic compliment is he is responding to a category, not to me. The fix is specificity. Radical, particular, unrepeatable specificity. The way you lit up when you talked about your daughter. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that. There's something about the way you think through a problem that I find genuinely rare. I noticed the way you spoke to that waiter, with real warmth. It says something about who you are. These are not flattery. These are observations. And an observation, a real one, a specific one, says something that no compliment can. I was paying attention, to you. Specifically, not to women in general, not to what I hoped you would be, to who you actually are. That is what makes a woman feel cherished. Not adoration, not worship, but the quiet, powerful experience of being truly witnessed by someone who was paying close enough attention to see the real her, and who chose deliberately to say so. Trigger number 7. Patience as seduction. And the final trigger, the one that ties everything together, is this: the willingness to let things unfold. The mistake here is urgency. The energy of I need this to go somewhere. The subtle but detectable pressure that communicates scarcity, as though if she doesn't move quickly enough, the window will close. Women feel this energy, and to her subconscious, urgency reads as desperation, and desperation reads as needed. And need, unregulated, pressuring need, is the single most reliable way to collapse attraction. Here's what your patience communicates to her biology. I am not afraid of losing you, because I am not empty without you. I am a full person, curious, engaged, enjoying this, and I have nowhere I would rather be than right here, in this moment, with no agenda beyond presence. That is an extraordinarily rare energy, especially in men who are deeply interested in a woman. The instinct is to lean forward, to accelerate, to demonstrate enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is not the problem. The problem is when enthusiasm becomes a form of pressure. The mature man who has done his inner work, who understands himself, who is not running from loneliness into someone else's arms, carries a quality of unhurried confidence that is, in the language of evolutionary biology, one of the most powerful signals of high value that exists. It says, I chose you. I am not settling. I am not desperate. I am here because I want to be here, and I will be here, fully, for as long as this deserves to unfold. That patience, that groundedness, that refusal to rush what is worth savoring, that is the biological symphony in full voice. So let's bring this together. 7 triggers: stillness, genuine attention, emotional grounding, psychological exposure, sexual polarity, specificity, patience. None of these are techniques you apply to someone. They are ways of being that you cultivate within yourself. And that is the profound advantage that age gives you. Not in spite of your years, but because of them. Because you have lived through enough to know what matters. Because you have been broken open enough times to understand that real strength is not armor. It is depth. It is presence. It is the willingness to be fully, unapologetically, recognizably yourself in the presence of another person. That is not something a 25-year-old can fake. That is earned. Now if this resonated with you, if something in here landed, I want you to do one thing. Drop the word cherish in the comments right now. Just that one word. It tells me you are here, you are paying attention, and you understand that what we are talking about is not conquest, it is connection. It is the deepest form of human recognition. One person saying to another, I see you, I choose you, I am not afraid of you. Cherish. Leave it below. And one more thing. What you've just learned is only half of the equation. Understanding these triggers, knowing them intellectually, that is the map. But the map is not the territory. The territory is the moment she is standing in front of you, and you reach for her hand, or you lean in, or you pull her close, and in that moment, everything you know has to move from your mind into your body. In the next video, we are going to talk about exactly that. How to translate this psychological understanding into physical connection. Specifically, how to hold a woman. How a 20-second embrace, done with full presence and intention, can rewire her emotional association with you more powerfully than any conversation ever could. That video is waiting for you. It will change the way you touch, the way you hold, the way you make someone feel that the world has gotten quieter and safer just because you are in it. I'll see you there.